Welcome to Mini Motorways, the game where you construct a satisfying town. There's a bit of traffic, add a roundabout, there's increased demand, build a highway, control the flow of traffic through intricately designed roads to climb the global leaderboards. Thank you to the developers Dinosaur Polo Club for sponsoring the video. Consider subscribing and enjoy the video. I had officially begun my first project, consisting of a house which I connected to a building. The car rolled up, collected a pin, and went home. That truly difficult puzzle having been bested, a couple more houses appeared, which I connected to the same building, still maximizing efficiency until a blue house and building popped up. The only way to get there was an intersection. I was skeptical of this solution, seeing the lack of traffic lights, but everyone seems to be civilized enough, unlocking an upgrade of a bridge. This allowed the connection of a third blue building across the river, and a new red building too, which was recently built. This was causing some strain on the main intersection, quickly luckily resolved at another upgrade, in which I chose the traffic light, placing it in the middle and allowing free safe movement. Things are still getting clogged up though. A short-lived sentiment, as I'd just gotten the highway. This allowed the immediate and fast connection between 2 points built over all the other roads. Now, don't get me wrong, this did help the red cars get through, but really what I needed badly was a roundabout. This beautiful thing would save my run, and removing all the roads around the residential district, I waited until all the cars had left for a harmless construction and placed it down. Suddenly, all the cars were moving freely through that area, but I had another issue. This red building was not getting enough cars. The pins were stacking up. I was about to lose. Thinking quickly, I added a secondary outlet road to connect these two red houses, and we were saved. More importantly, I gotten another highway, perfect as another yellow building had appeared in the top right. Connecting it to the housing district to the left, I noticed more and more random houses appearing sporadically. I presumed the CBD housing prices had skyrocketed, resulting in major urban growth and unstable demand. All my buildings were overflowing. I just needed 400 to win one more. I had done it. Now, with a free license to any city I wanted, I decided, before setting a specific goal, to try a proper run at Los Angeles before testing out creative mode because it's new and sounds fun. Anyways, my goal for this run was connecting both the yellow and red cars through one large intersection to have a giant roundabout in said intersection to keep all the traffic steady and moving. I was lucky enough to unlock one in my first week, placing it down and watching all my disruptionless traffic. Learning from my last project, I was also trying to keep the red and yellow houses in tight, segregated communities, unlocking 2 traffic lights which I was hoping I could find a use for. Things were looking good. Oh no, are you seeing this? Dark blue had joined in, the building on this side of the river, and the houses on that side of the river. Unfortunately, their only route was all the way up and around. This is terrible, until of course, I unlocked the bridge. Now I could cut them across the bottom, avoid all the traffic, but it pains me to say, as the narrator watching this footage back, that I did not do that. Instead, I was trying to figure out how to place the bridge in the first place. Eventually, I made the discovery that you just build a road across the river. I connected the dark blue more efficiently, in turn allowing access to the new red building and a secondary way for all the traffic to get across the river. Things were looking good. There were no build-ups, only slow urban developments out in the east. This included some green buildings, and as I hit 300 pins, I was confident that my infrastructure was solid. Unlocking another highway, I used this to connect a small country town in the northeast to the main city. Unfortunately, as a byproduct, further congesting the riverside roads. As such, I was happy to choose a roundabout as the next upgrade, placing it right outside the dark blue, reducing traffic to a minimum. I had forgotten though about the teal building at the bottom. It was getting angry, quickly wasting a highway to keep it satiated. As I flew past 600 pins, I built a small bridge in the middle and zoomed out to appreciate my work. Do you see the issue here, though? That's right, the light green in the northwest was completely unattended. Hurriedly attaching it to an urban town, I noticed more and more of my buildings were overflowing. As I hit 750 pins, teal was failing, dark blue was failing. Alright, pause, stop everything. Alright, I had a spare highway, which I used to connect the dark blue houses directly to the destination. I restarted. Would it work? No. I had failed at 779 commuters. Not bad, I thought, checking the leaderboards. Alright. I'm ranked 930,000 and I'm in the bottom 15%. that was not the result I was looking for. Still, I had the new creative mode to enjoy. Booting up Tokyo in creative, I was able to start building the city of my dreams without any of the limits, something I wish I could do in ranked. Thinking back to my LA disaster class, I wondered where it had gone wrong. What had happened that made it in the bottom 15% of players? Was I simply unskilled? Unlucky? Did I have what it took to play the harder maps? Well, I decided in that moment that if anything, I have determination, and I would not stop this video until I had achieved a top 1% score in a map. Not yet having comprehended the magnitude of the task I had set for myself, I returned to my creative endeavors. Wow. This was a giant city. I had all my residents in the northwest area with roundabouts for easy traversal and nice neat roads for neighborhoods. I finished by adding some highways where the traffic was particularly bad before stepping back and watching with satisfaction my grand city come to life. Anyways, it's time to climb the leaderboards. My first training ground would be London, where I was surprised to see a train that would drop off pins for me to collect. As a blue district also appeared, it seemed that I would need 2 colors to collect from one station, and I needed another crossing because yellow had spawned on the other side of the tracks. Not to worry, too, it's not dangerous. The cars just slow down for the train. I now had a choice of an upgrade, and again, it pains me to say that I picked the roundabout over the highway, placing it next to the station for increased efficiency. Now, London was rapidly expanding, especially around the River Thames, forcing me to build another bridge to facilitate the new light green building. Joining it was a red building, another annoying double destination, but nevertheless, zooming out, it was rare to see more than 1 or 2 outstanding pins. My city was just that efficient. Again, though, my current focus was keeping all the houses in small groups of 3 to 4, then congregating in a roundabout to then go off to the buildings. This plan was brilliant. There were no issues at all. I got a new highway and just kept it in my pocket. Everything was working so well, I had no use for it at all, except of course, this intersection between the tram line, the river, and the dark blue building. I did have a traffic light down there, but there were still constant build-ups. Nothing a bottom 15% designer can't fix. So after connecting a second train station to the loop, I decided just to spam a bunch of roads around the intersection just so, they had more options. Genius? You tell me. Now, don't get me wrong, this was only because I couldn't fit a roundabout in there. I am a big fan of roundabouts, choosing another one even if I had no use for it, before realizing the light green building below the river was struggling. Hooking up a highway directly from the northern houses turned out to be a brilliant play, as more buildings began to appear in that area. Annoyingly, the building that did spawn was yellow and deep in the southeastern corner, forcing a long connecting road and then a highway just to get to the northern yellow houses. This may have seemed like overkill, but it was justified when teal houses popped up near the yellow houses, which could use the highway to reach the struggling building near the highway exit. The entire map at this point was becoming highly developed, and as I sailed by 850 trips, things were looking dicey. I had never seen these levels of success before, so I paused quickly to rethink my strategy. Let's get real smart here. The main congregations are the double traffic light area between the train line and the dark blue, and the large roundabout across the river. Just look at all the traffic back there. But was this even possible to repair? I was skeptical, both in its integrity and my ability to bring it into fruition. Look, I'll be honest, I can't repair it right now. I knew the whole city was about to fail. I seemingly only had one choice, that being to remove everything. I deleted every highway, every road, and every intersection on the entire map, leaving a skeleton of unfulfilled promises. The promise of mine, actually, to get to 1,150 left. I began carefully reconstructing the city, making major improvements where I could, and trying to repair the downfalls of the old design. There were no more large intersections, congregation points, or large roundabouts that half the city relied on. It was the newly efficient, clean, and smart version. City 2.0. Very new, very perfect, and so we got back on track. The teal building with the timer was my main issue. Green also starting to overflow when I reinstated a better placed roundabout, and of course the highway for light greens. Remembering this far southeastern yellow needs a highway from the top left yellow houses, originally carrying teal too, but this created congestion, so I decided yellow can go through the right side bridges, and as teal is close to failing, I added a teal only highway. This wasn't working though, the timer was running low, so I built another roundabout just for this red timer building, less than 100 left, and I had failed. 936 commuters completed. This was a grand improvement though. I was now in the bottom 35%. Hey, that's a 20% increase. Soon, I would be in the top 1%. For now though, it was time to go to Mumbai. Once again, there was a train station here, and my main focus point this time was an increased number of main roads, as the congestion last time came from cars squeezing onto one or two. Keeping the initial roads nice and square to conserve space, I was slightly annoyed at just how cautious the cars were around trains. Like, if I was this guy, I would have just gone. And that's why I failed my hazards test. Now, traffic lights had also been relatively useless for me thus far, so opting instead for lots of roads for my upgrade at 30 pins, I immediately began building a long path along the bottom of the map, a smart diversion where all these teal cars wouldn't even get onto the main road, decreasing traffic. I thought this was quite brilliant of me, deciding to use the same strategy to isolate these two red houses in the far north and the new green train station that had appeared. I was slightly running out of roads at this point though, but everything was moving smoothly. I flew past 200 pins, marveling at my brilliant work. There was no traffic anywhere. Wait, a house had just spawned on the other side of the river. Oh no. Spending significant resources on getting it on grid, I was happy to see a purple building spawn beside it, meaning my large bridge would be often used. That was the only good news though, as the roundabout in the middle was already attracting some build-up, resulting in my classic solution of just placing roads around randomly. Even worse, a yellow building spawned right next to it, meaning even more traffic would need to pass through, but the congestion was getting real enough for a timer to show its ugly face. This was not good. Choosing a motorway for my upgrade, I used it to connect the yellow building directly to the neighborhood, resulting in no adverse effects. Traffic had lightened and things were looking good. I had 2 more highways just in my pocket too, so when I realized that light green was giving me the most issues, well, first I added another bridge to connect a southern building before fearing the west and placing a highway connecting the suburbs to the CBD. I passed 900 pins without many outstanding issues, rapidly closing on to the 1000 mark when purple began to get angry. Pausing, the most southern building had a timer, the southeastern building was close, and the middle two were not easy either. I began by constructing a highway across the river to reach the rural one, and simply hoped for the best for the others. The top 2 purple districts fed the middle 2 purple buildings, then the bottom left district goes to the bottom 2. Big news though, 1000 pins had been achieved, but if not me, there is no one coming to save this city. The purple situation had been repaired, but now light green and yellow were both on timers. Receiving a roundabout, I placed it to the bottom of the city, realizing too late that the bottom light green was nearing failure. The train was preventing all the cars from moving, quickly placing a highway over it to prevent time loss, but alas, it was too late. 1,252 commuters, though, was a grand achievement, placing me solidly within the top 45%. I had once again made a solid 20% jump in the rankings, but that was, to be fair, just getting used to the game. From here, any improvements would be few and far between, a reality that I did not want to admit. This was a strategy game though, a game of skill built on experience. As such, it was time to study. Opening YouTube, I began watching tutorials on the skills that I would need to acquire in order to achieve my goal of top 1%, making sure to write comprehensive notes under subtitles for easier studying. I continued watching tutorials for a solid 2 hours. Thank you to Retroflux and Drawing Dread for being my main sources of information. I had my strategies, I had my notes. It was time for the Red TM ladder domination. Step 1 was to unlock every map in the game, first requiring the completion of Rio de Janeiro to 400 pins, a place that had tunnels. Anyways, my studies had come in handy earlier than expected. Before, I would have simply made an intersection here, but instead, I made a tunnel with the sole purpose of segregating the colors to reduce traffic. You see, one main takeaway was that I should have a small neighborhood connected to an individual building of an individual color to reduce traffic to a 0. This was particularly hard here due to the excessive mountains and as such tunnels required, but either way, things were progressing decently. That was until I tried to use my highway, but I couldn't. Highways can't be built over mountains. Nothing a future top 1% designer can't handle. Luckily, simply building a longer off-road to reach around the imposing hill. Now, the main use for highways I learned was for connecting individual buildings to a faraway community rather than to lessen traffic. So the mountain obstacles were ever more detrimental when purple buildings and purple houses began spawning on opposite sides of the map. I luckily had the foresight to save some roads for this very occasion, placing the last of them. Then the very next spawn was red with the exact same detrimental spawning. I genuinely couldn't even do anything, even using my roundabout just for some extra length, but to no avail. I would need to wait until Sunday for some extra roads. There was still hope for this run until the final pin in the coffin. A green building spawned, get this, in the corner, surrounded by mountains and the ocean, alone in a valley far from the city, inaccessible by highway and had no access from the ocean. I couldn't connect it and lost. Either way, it was a learning experience, and I got the privilege to put my learnings into action. I ultimately was okay. Time to restart. Already, I was having a significantly more efficient start, with purple, yellow, and green all spawning isolated in nice little sectors. Learning from my past failures, I chose the most road I could that weekend, seeing as lack of it may once again be my downfall. Unfortunate spawns were also a major issue, so after fixing an atrocious green spawn using a tunnel, I decided to implement a slightly unethical strategy of placing random road pieces in sections I didn't want new things to spawn, notably the cove. Look, I justified this for myself because this place sucks. Unfortunately, my grand strategy didn't work, and I was giving another disgusting purple spawn that I was forced to use a bridge to snake all the way around and connect it. Blessed with a solid red spawn before unlocking a tunnel that weekend and swiftly replacing the bridge with it to reduce time loss. This turned out to be perfect timing too, as I could use the newly decommissioned bridge to connect the new teal building that had spawned nearby. I was once again seeing unprecedented success, getting 628 pins and seeing I now had 2 red buildings, one of which having been upgraded. It is never a good idea to share houses with a level 2 building, so I used the highway to split them, making the system more efficient and endgame proof. Endgame proof? That's right, I was expecting this run to reach the endgame. I watched my creation run for some time, quickly hitting the 1000 pin mark before getting some more highways going. Things were looking very positive, shaping up to be a solid personal best. I flew past 1600 pins, plus 1 roundabout. The pin count just kept going up. Was this video complete here? Had I already reached the peaks of mini motorways? Had my studying been this effective? As I reached 2000 though, things began looking shaky. Red began surging, meaning it required significantly more cars in a short period of time. Circumstances that began appearing 1500 plus. Receiving another highway, I used it to quickly reroute yellow to make use of this small town across the river. Still, everything was getting immensely busier as the pins continued to fly in. I had lost at 2,555 commuters, an all-time personal best, unlocking a heap of new maps, placing me within the top 15% of players, a gigantic 30% increase from my last run. But it's gonna get much harder from here. Never mind that though, there were still many maps to unlock, and to do so, we're headed to Dubai. Also, since I'm playing at night, I switched it to night mode. Wow, the cars have headlights. So ambient. Already though, my initial spawns were lucky, with all the colors relatively keeping to themselves. On top of this, I received my first motorway week 3 earlier than anticipated, marking the beginning of a great run. Unfortunately, my enthusiasm was quickly halted when I got my first bad spawn, that being a yellow building across cream roads. Nothing I could do about it though, except place a roundabout to make it early game proof and hope I got extra highways. Yeah, though it really looks like I spoke too soon, as I had a terrible green building spawn, being forced to use my only highway just to keep everything separate enough. And that was it? Was I saved? Had my bad luck ran out? Then came the purple spawn. You can't make this up. They were on opposite sides of the map. I didn't even have extra bridges to make a new road there. I had to use a roundabout to connect it to this already used bridge, then at an intersection where it could snake off from there. My goodness, what a waste! Hopefully a motorway comes soon. My prayers were somewhat answered when I got a new pink spawn actually be kind to me, easily connecting them and receiving another bridge on the weekend. I had only surpassed 500 pins by this point. By the way, even after all that hardship, the game decided to spawn a yellow building all the way to the right. But look, I could luckily just fix this with the highway. A decent solution actually, when a terrible purple building spawned next to it, forcing them to temporarily share a highway just to survive. But I'll be honest, I just wanted to complain about that. In reality, I could just connect the purple to the nearby purple road. They were still sharing their houses, but at least there was no different ones mixing. Everything was calm and looking good. But it could either be my brilliant engineering or the calm before the storm. And as a single cream building spawned on the top island, realizing I had no extra bridges or roads, it seemed to be the latter. As I reached the 1,000 mark, I had a gigantic mess at the bottom of my city, random buildings haphazardly spawning at the top. I was forced to use a highway to connect the green only, but unfortunately, I was too late. I had lost with 1,082 commuters, one of my all-time worst performances. Still unlocking a bunch of new maps. Could I possibly write this as bad luck? What could I have done to prevent that? Was I washed? Was my earlier success simply dumb luck? I still had one map left to unlock though, Copenhagen. Busan was required to beat it, and as such, crossing my fingers, I got started. Busan is an area with a prominent river, which hopefully would not become a detriment to my run. The initial spawns were all that I could ask for, the only annoyance being all three buildings needed bridges. Still, all was good. That was until the second yellow building appeared, this being an issue because the first yellow was level 2, requiring an isolated yellow neighborhood to be future-proof. As such, I was lucky enough to have just enough road to make a second new yellow outlet just for the new building. That right there is product efficiency. Taking a look at purple, which was also running reasonably well, all was good until the second pink appeared. I was being stretched thin here, but I did manage to snake a new road all the way across to connect to a single pink house, just hoping that it would evolve into a whole district. I got a motorway that weekend, deciding to save it up is where my luck ended. You see, another purple had appeared, forcing me to leave the eastern two buildings to the small purple town over the river and instead connect the original purple spawn to the upper purple building. And look, this is lackluster problem solving, but things did not end there. Pink spawns continued to do me slightly dirty with a total of 4 houses to facilitate 2 buildings. Oh, thank you though. There's some more pink spawning. Oh, that's a relief. Ending with 5 houses for 3 buildings. Rejoice. Only a temporary predicament. As quickly more began to pop up. Was my luck back? Things did not end there. I had rolled a tan building in the double destination, the only 2 tan houses being on the far side of the river. Not having the extra infrastructure to facilitate this, I was forced to connect to both pink and purple. Certainly a huge waste of efficiency. Pretty unfortunate. Things did not end there. The next building to spawn was at the very top of the map, the northernmost point. There is still hope though, dry of resources. I just managed to reach it. I just needed a highway, bro. Please, please. Let's go. Seeing the northern building doing reasonably, I was happy to use the highway on instead cleaning up the situation with the pink and purple cars the best I could, completing the project. Finally, I was happy with my work. Then a teal building spawned. Okay, I have 3 houses, by the way. 1 feeding the first teal building and 2 on the direct other side of the map. So of course, I reconstructed the pink road, removing all of my hard work, reclaiming the highway, and I used it for the teal building instead. My only wish was another teal district to spawn nearby. My other pressing issue was the second yellow building in the middle having leveled up, requiring backup as there weren't enough yellow houses nearby. For that, I needed a highway, which by the way, I only had 2 of in week 8. I think that's pretty lucky, but I don't really know. I haven't played enough to know for sure. Is what I was thinking when this tan building leveled up. That obviously means more houses, right? Where are they gonna spawn? Let's go. At the very bottom. Yep. The whole world is rage baiting me. Worse, I can't even complain about it because straight after they began spawning at the top 2, making it cheap and efficient to connect them. There is no pleasing me. Still, my infrastructure through these tough times was looking good as I flew past 1,000 pins, the only caveat being this roundabout and the surrounding mess. My goodness, I'd hate to be the guy who made this. It was basically damage mitigation at this point. The basic framework simply wasn't built to survive this far in, and with the oasis of another highway received, I panicked when yellow began to surge rapidly, quickly rerouting purple around the top to give an extra highway to the cause, using it to pour my backup yellow cars into the buildings. Everyone stop, would it hold? Miraculously, it did. My ramshackle design had somehow dragged itself into these numbers until another building at the bottom failed that I hadn't been paying attention to. Damn. Nevertheless, I was proud of my 2075, done with quite the setbacks, officially unlocking Copenhagen. The map looked very hard though, so instead, I just goofed around in creative mode for some while, studying the map while filling it sporadically with roads. Wait, is this modern art? The entangled roads and uneven density symbolize the ever-changing socio-economic relations with our current financial landscape. At least you can't take this off the wall and eat it. I have something to confess as well. Last night, I dreamt of mini motorways. It was in my dreams. Yeah. Like, I was sleeping and I was connecting houses to buildings. Like, I'm cooked. I'm actually cooked. It seemed my setbacks were over though, as Copenhagen had a brilliant start, with both yellow spawning super close. This was followed by teal. Decent, nothing to scoff at. Red was alright, I guess. Still using a bridge for no reason. What a good mood I'm currently in. This all changed though, as soon as blue showed up. Once again, the buildings are to the left and the houses are to the right, across 2 bridges. It's too early to complain though. We must live on. Until, of course, the next teal appeared southwest corner. And oh wait, look up here. All the way up here. The only available house is in the northeast. Wait, I have 3 houses for 2 buildings? Huh? Welcome to 1 hour of Red TM complaining about his luck, which probably isn't actually that bad, but I have no solid comparison, so I'll just say it is. Getting to work, snaking the red and blue roads around to keep everything separate from the new yellow building. I watched in despair as my teal building leveled up while the only teal house is still all the way up there. You know, I've been learning breathing exercises. 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out, empty for 4. It's nice. You should try it. Very calming, very meditating. I had reached 200 pins as white spawned in, the building in the bottom right, and the house in the direct middle of all my other roads. Wanting to avoid an intersection, I had no choice but to utilize my highway. Truly sad times. In hindsight though, maybe this was all a build-up of luck to be all repaid in a later run, but you'll have to wait and see. For now, red spawned. I just needed a few more houses to facilitate it, which did appear, to be fair, completely alone at the very top of the map. And then another one spawned in the middle of 2 roads. What am I supposed to do with this? Everyone, calm down. It's chill, okay? I moved the teal road and used a highway instead, connecting the 2 lonely reds, using another highway to supply the 3rd red building. Things are once again looking good, albeit expensive, until... That's right, there's another until. A teal building spawned at the bottom, and reaching your head all the way to the top is where the houses are situated. And then a red building leveled up, forcing me to remove another highway just to get enough cars in. White 2 spawned at the very bottom, which I used a bridge to get connected. Then another yellow appeared to the bottom left, which I needed to use another highway for. You know, at this point, I was happy to see this happen. Within my mind, I saw this all as filling my bank of luck, something I would need to be overflowing in order to gain a top 1% score at my skill level. There was still much to learn and not the time to do so. 1,000 pins had been surpassed and my hardships did not end there. Annoyingly, blue had spawned on the red road and another red building had spawned even if I didn't have the houses to supply it properly. My grand design skills helped me to remedy the issue, the caveat being 1 red building left unintentionally completely unattended. I realized this quickly though, noticing my only chance of survival being the receival of a highway this Sunday, the clock ticking ever closer to the date, and no choice for a highway. Is this GG? But in the end, my failure stemmed not from the game, but from my own incompetence in not noticing a failing white building. My score, in the end, top 50%. With this score, the first percentile seemed further and further away, a goal seemingly unobtainable for a mortal such as myself. Was I washed? Did I never have a chance to begin with? One thing was obvious. I needed more training. This began in the beautiful city of Moscow. My bad luck bank slyly alleviated the early game with some solid spawns. Of course, this ended immediately with the appearance of light blue across opposite sides of the river. I don't have any bridges on me and I can't fit a road through the top, forcing an intersection between 2 colors. You know how I feel about that. Grrr. An unfortunate byproduct of these peculiar spawns was that as the map expanded, I had more and more separate color roads covering the top area, reducing the chance of lucky houses spawning in those areas. At the very least, everything is efficient. Then blue was built at the bottom, requiring the use of a temporary highway, and when attempting to repair the situation, I realized I was out of roads. That has never been a good sign, but nevertheless, upon receiving more, I quickly fixed up the road in order to remove the highway to use for later surges. That is, if I made it that far. Passing 625 pins, I had some unlucky blue and purple building spawns in the bottom left, once again forcing a highway usage and begging the question, what did I do to deserve this? Everything was working though, instilling some pride into my work until all of the timers began. Blue was a large issue, not the lack of highways to connect to spare houses, but the lack of spare houses in the first place. I have infinite purple houses. Look, anywhere there's purple houses, but like 2 blue houses to spare. Genuinely, are there enough houses to stop the surge? Maybe. I had lost, so we may never know. VOD review, what happened? Wait, I'm bottom 40%. I'm so washed, I've actually lost it. This is what happened. Look at this. 1 blue, 2, 3, 4, 5 blue buildings, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 2 little guys over here. I have 13 houses for 5 buildings. Was that run doomed from the beginning? I really needed some luck. This was a really nice map, granted the extreme lack of landmass. Things were looking really good though most of the early game, both yellow buildings and both red buildings properly segregating themselves. That was, of course, until the 3rd yellow building spawned below the 2 red ones, forcing me to mix the cars. Speaking of mixing, can we look at the top left corner right now? There are just yellow and red houses mixing up completely. There is no way for me to keep them separated. Nevertheless, it was a good start, and I was also happy to see a new yellow neighborhood popping up, meaning I could probably segregate the top yellow building soon enough. On top of this, green had spawned in. Not bad, but not good. Receiving a motorway that weekend, I paused the game and zoomed out to look at what I had created. It was a mess, just going everywhere, incredibly inefficient. I could not keep going with this, so I did what I do best and began to remove everything that was annoying me, carefully rerouting them to maximize efficiency for the disgusting spawns that I'd been given. Finally, using my highway in order to connect the teal building that had annoyingly spawned in the other corner to the teal houses. I'm only at 400 pins, by the way, and the yellow middle building had already begun to fail. On top of this, oh my days, are we seeing this purple spawn? My solution to this peculiar situation included having a highway to connect the failing yellow building to separate from the other yellow buildings. Then looking over at the purple building, crossing over the green road in order to access the purple. Truly a despicable series of events. Surprisingly broken by this incomprehensible yellow building spawn. It is 1 tile away from the yellow house. This could not have gone any better. Thanks to this, I could zoom out and watch my city go, spending some time rerouting purple as one of the buildings had leveled up and quickly flying past the 1000 pin mark. At this point, by the way, I was very aware of the lack of protection I had against the end game. Things are just so messy. There are multiple overlapping roads thanks to the lack of space, but still for now, things were progressing relatively well. Finding it a necessary sacrifice, I used one of the highways in order to separate the purple from the green cars. Efficiency is my middle name after all, except when I'm writing these scripts. But of course, my downfall was quickly approaching. The light blue building to the east had surprisingly leveled up, too much to handle for the small neighborhood supplying it. So here I put my learnings into use by adding another highway, one on each end, to act as an input and an output to keep cars flowing efficiently. Using this incredibly intelligent strategy, I was able to save myself from failure. Things did not end there though. Quickly, yellow began failing, forcing me to replace the purple highway with a bridge in order to supply extra houses to the failing buildings to the north. Genuinely, this place is a mess. It was never supposed to get this high, but yet I had survived once again. Until now, purple got angry and yellow got angry again. I just don't have enough yellow buildings around to supply them quickly. Rerouting a bunch to the top, the purple had plenty of cars, but it's still failing. My only chance was the surge ending soon. The purple building to the right had failed. In the end, I got 2,050 commuters. You know what? I might be getting my spark back. Top 25%. Alright, only 24% to go. My start in LA, like many others, was really positive with yellow, red, and blue all spawning relatively segregated. I could keep all of the roads separate. I flew through the super early game, light blue spawning completely away from everyone else, which I'm oh so grateful for, and which may shape up to be one of my greatest runs yet. You see, my next blue spawn was also completely isolated to the east, and with only 250 pins, I already had 2 motorways to my name. And although luck did slightly slow down with the red neighborhood spawning pretty far away from the nearest building, things ran really smoothly until the 600 pin mark, and I was forced to use a highway to get over the green road in order to focus more cars into the newly level 2 light blue building at the top. This may look like overkill, but it will be necessary in order to get the grand score of this run. Another green had decided to spawn all the way in the northwest corner, forcing another highway usage just to get some cars supplied there. This was when a yellow spawned in the southeast corner. Look, I would be complaining a whole lot at this point, but I was able to just connect the eastern neighborhood to it, so it was all good, including the new yellow building that had spawned right next to the neighborhood too. Also, remember the green highway? Well, I decided just to snake a road over there instead. That was, of course, until another green building spawned in the same place, forcing the use of a highway there. I was, by the way, at this point, getting slightly ecstatic about how this run was going. Everything was super smooth, separated, and clean. This is especially amazing, by the way, because most of the buildings that would spawn had already spawned. At this point, it was just a race to maximize the efficiency. Nearing 1,200 pins, I realized that the two highways going over the one green road supplying light blue were quite inefficient, removing them and instead putting a highway for the green, letting both the blue just use normal roads underneath it. This both decreased the time of blue travel and gave me one more highway to play with. Watching the various neighborhoods evolve with eagle eyes, I neared 2,000 pins when yellow started to become angry. This was a classic mini surge, first turning around all the red buildings that shared the same yellow road and adding a small roundabout for increased efficiency. I realized this wasn't working as well as I'd hoped, using my backup highway for this very occasion to direct 2 extra houses from across the river inside. Truly the benefits of having an extra highway for emergency use. My hardships did not end there though, with next red and light blue surging massively. Luckily for me, my infrastructure is low-key goated and could simply handle it. The pin count continued to explode. Next I saw dark blue becoming angry, once again using my spare highway in order to reroute more houses to help it out. Flying past 2,700 pins, I paused momentarily to realize I was doing my all-time best and my infrastructure was still holding very strong. I was getting a little nervous. Red was currently surging. Not having experienced traffic this high, I rerouted 2 different small neighborhoods to help out the one level 2 building, just managing to survive, and look, I've surpassed 3,000 pins. I was having a lot of surges now, dark blue and red. By around 3,300, red had just survived, but dark blue was looking particularly bad, requiring just a stupid amount of cars. Looking around though, I realized I already was using every single dark blue house on the map, except for one in the very top corner. Of course, I quickly changed that by routing the single house into the building too. I can't focus everything on this one building though. Green was also beginning to fail in the center, hurriedly rerouting the highway to have access to a bunch of greens in the bottom right. There's like 10 houses here brimming with cars ready to drive, but none of them moved. And thus, my greatest run so far came to an unfortunate end. 3,593 commuters over 117 days. Had I done it, was my top 1% dreams complete? No. I'd landed in the top 3%. I scrolled through my unlocked maps, wondering which I should attempt, eventually landing on Lisbon. This, to be honest, looked like a pretty easy map. For now though, I was just training. I knew I had the skills to be in the top 1%, proven by the last run, but also that was plagued by lucky spawns, so I wouldn't get my hopes up. This was proven immediately with my dark blue spawn. The building is here, and the houses are here. All of this is in the way. I just snagged the road around, okay? It's fine. No biggie. For my week 2 upgrade, I decided to get 40 hotels rather than traffic lights, as so far they've been quite useless to me. At that moment, I had some pretty bad yellow and red house spawns, forcing me to push down the blue road further. You know how this could have been alleviated if only I had some traffic lights. I had a pretty good new yellow building spawn to the west before my blue building decided to level up. This was a little scary until I witnessed this orange building spawn. Are we serious? It seemed that luck was a larger contributing factor to my last run than I'd first anticipated. Still, it was looking good, and with everything separated as I reached the higher 100s, I claimed my second motorway already. And look, the more eastern yellow building had leveled up. So where do you think the new yellow buildings were spawning? That's right. They were all the way down here across the river. Hey, you know what? It's still kind of close. I was justifying to myself in my head as I looked to the bottom right corner island. Just look at this. Unfortunately, already being forced to use one of my highways, I simply hoped some new blue houses would appear close to it. It seemed to me like the map was predominantly expanding towards the 3 islands across the major river. This was proven by a reasonable grey spawn, which I could connect using a bridge between the bottom 2 islands, as well as the small light blue neighborhood spawning in the right upper island. And where do you think their destination lies? That's right. It's the double destination in the middle of the main island. Once again, a highway must be used. Only having one more highway left, I'll be sure not to use it. And then another grey appeared on the eastern island. The only houses being on the corner island, and I have no bridge. Alright, I promise this will be the final highway I use, because I had run out of them. Finally though, I had some luck with the new blue spawn to the west of the center island. This forced me to rethink where each house would route to, ending with a fairly efficient system. On top of this, I had received another bridge, finally allowing me to connect the two eastern greys across the small river that separated them. With my reclaimed highway, I was able to route some cars to the new orange building that had spawned to the west of the bottom island. With that, all of my highways were in use. Things are not looking good. Annoyingly, light blue had also spawned on the double destination, forcing me to share the grey bridge across the two southern islands. Not for long. Apparently, I could get a bridge for the next week upgrade, quickly separating the two to maximize my efficiency, carrying me across the 1,000 pin mark. Receiving another highway, I used it to separate the two grey buildings, adding a roundabout to the upper dark blue building as I could sense it was close to failing. To be honest, my whole system felt like it was close to failing. Another yellow building spawned that I was unaware of, quickly needing to use a highway as an emergency measure because I had no bridges left. Soon after too, there was an issue starting at orange, requiring me to remove a highway in order to provide cover, followed by what possibly could be the worst orange building spawn of all time. Are we seeing this? The only access point is a highway. I can't push down the grey road because the light blue houses are in the way. Oh my. I was saved though, as I could get a bridge for week 12, quickly connecting the bad yellow up with a short bridge, freeing up the highway which I could use for the terrible orange. Everything was looking good. I flew past 2,000 pins, noticing grey was starting to have some issues. Too late. Apparently, I'd removed a highway in order to rewrite some more, but alas, I had lost 2,648 commuters. Not a bad training run at all. This having slightly inflated my ego, I decided I only needed one more training run before I would start making real attempts for the top 1%. Visiting Vancouver for this final training, I turned on night mode because it's nighttime and it's so ambient. Notice how I'm laughing. What a jolly mood I'm in. That would not survive my yellow building spawn. It was just blocking the entire passageway through. I have no bridge to go around. I was forced to temporarily share the road with blue. That weekend, I also chose a roundabout as this small squeeze in the map would possibly need a lot of cars passing through. This was obviously proven by grey, two buildings of which spawned through the tiny gap, with the houses appearing to the south of the map. Luckily, I just used the highway for now, a reasonable solution it seemed, as a third grey building spawned with the other two, where upon receiving another roundabout, I placed it up there for further efficiency. You know what? Everything was doing well, it seemed, until this teal building spawned above the Vancouver harbour. I genuinely have no way of getting this bottom right corner house to there. So I was forced to connect the grey buildings to the middle roundabout, recycling the highway in order to get teal on the grid. This, of course, came at the detriment of efficiency through the middle roundabout, really causing grey to struggle, and as the middle yellow leveled up, it was all getting too congested to be sustainable. Luckily, upon getting another highway, I was able to segregate grey once again, all of this effort just disappearing in an instant as a teal building spawned next to the middle roundabout. Although we were back to maximum congestion, I thought that was all of my bad luck. And then a yellow building spawned once again above the harbour, requiring teal to share its highway with some yellow houses too. Truly gut-wrenching stuff, but I have huge news. I had a bridge and two new teal houses had spawned directly opposite the building across a tiny river, allowing the highway to become yellow only and maximizing teal efficiency. As I surpassed 400 pins, I hoped I'd start to get some lucky spawns. This did not happen. In fact, notably, I got a new grey building on the other side of the harbour again. But, of course, this meant new grey houses, so I preyed upon where they would spawn in the direct opposite corner. My days, I had to reroute to the dark blue and use that highway instead to supply them. Speaking of dark blue, I really needed some more to spawn. My dark blue building to house ratio was bad. I just needed some more houses so I could supply them properly, I say, as I noticed the large neighbourhood of dark blue across the harbour. Using a newly acquired motorway, I managed to segregate a level 2 dark blue building near the roundabout to lower traffic. With all of these upgrades, my city was being relatively efficient, flying past 1,000 pins when I ran into another issue. A third yellow building had spawned in the middle section, requiring a highway in the near future, and as predicted, yellow quickly began to struggle. I needed more yellow houses and more ways of getting cars inside. Nothing was working though. Please, I need a highway this weekend. I had withstood so many terrible spawns for this very moment. Would the game give it to me? No, it did not. I tried a pathetic bridge to supply the top two while rerouting another highway to the middle, but in the end, I lost with 1,549. My start in Munich was as good as they get, with both red and blue completely segregated. I then got a fantastic second red building spawn and a continually growing red neighborhood across the river. Second blue was decent and grey was nothing to scoff at, but it seemed my luck had not ended there as I got a motorway for my week 3 upgrade. Stored safely in my pocket for now, it seemed that it was the end of it as I witnessed a terrible purple spawn requiring me to snake a road all the way around the bottom left, possibly a highway requirement in the future, but it was all good for now. Also, notice how I snaked it much wider than required. This was a genius self-created strategy in order to keep space for that small blue neighborhood to continue expansion. This would not be the end of very long roads though, as pink spawned once again on opposite sides of the map. A very long road you have, I guess, keep in mind, pretty temporary, as once again I just received a highway, meaning drastic action could happen if times required it. I was though being fairly conservative with my highways. Even when the double destination turned out white, I had to intersect purple and white cars to have everything work out. Turns out this more patient playstyle was ideal as I had some lucky white spawns allowing me to once again segregate all the houses. But wait, as I neared 400 pins, I realized what a detriment my pink neighborhood spawn had been. 3 buildings were on the far west and all my houses were on the far east until I should, yes, stop complaining because a new pink house had appeared at the bottom and all was fine. To be honest, as I passed 500 pins, all looked fine on paper, but I didn't have the best feeling about this run. Wait though, I need a moment to appreciate this 4th blue house that had appeared on the single highway I had on the map. You see, I would have had to move this highway if I only had 3 houses there, but having 4, it was perfect. I know, this is a really small thing, but it's just so great, I love it. Anyways, I had a fairly unfortunate purple building at the very top of the map, luckily being supplied by a highway from 5 dedicated houses. The only caveat of this being I had to move the pink road in order to have space for this to happen, making both the pink buildings go onto timers. I'm still early game using the highway. I managed to save one of them, quickly moving the highway to another neighborhood in order to save the second one, but unfortunately they'd already chosen their route and refused to use the highway, ending my run at 932 commuters. I had once again landed myself within the bottom 40%. Truly an unfortunate situation. Alright, I am rejuvenated. I am energized. I am ready to get this top 1%, okay? Currently, my plan is, I'm looking at this, okay? I got Los Angeles, I got 3.6k. Looking at Beijing, 3.6k is like here. That's top 1% right there. If I can replicate my LA performance in Beijing, it's done. Okay, we're good. Hoping to put a swift end to my unfortunate run of games, I flew through the early game, getting some traffic lights and enjoying a brilliant blue spawn, as well as a really good yellow spawn. Now, of course, this was all doomed to fail with a green spawn that required me to bring a road all the way around the back of the yellow and red buildings just to supply it, realizing this may have been a bit stupid actually, and just opting to intersect the red and green roads. I had some more luck in the form of a blue spawn again, though, allowing an easy connection to both, but it was not all sunshine and rainbows. I was then hit with a hideous grey spawn, requiring another snaking road to reach it. My bad luck didn't end there. The middle blue building leveled up, and all of my blue houses just randomly scattered everywhere. I was forced to use a highway just to supply enough. A yellow building then spawned at the very top, and wait, where are my yellow houses? That's right, they're just randomly scattered around, no rhyme or reason. Another highway off the books to supply a single yellow house. By the way, I quickly surpassed 900 pins though, pausing to rethink my highway strategies. Alright. Alright, you know what? Things are relatively shaping up. Maybe the worst offender, which was green, and I had to cross over red, go all the way around into this one, okay? I got another little green neighborhood here. I just attached a highway, and we're good. And also, these neighborhoods are also pretty good. I can't lie. I've been certainly getting luckier with the house spawns ever since this, whatever this is. To be honest, that guy should really stop yapping. My city was performing fairly well in comparison to its design, flying past 1,000 pins, and beginning to notice my blue building struggling. I connected a highway in order to supply more cars. As I neared 1,500 pins, I paused once again to reassess my situation. My blue buildings were on timers, my grey buildings were on timers, and my red buildings were on timers. Alright, pause, okay? I don't want to see any movement. This is about to fail. It has 4 pins, and it has 2 houses supplying it. This is a level 1 building, by the way. I'm at 1.5 thousand. How is red on a timer? Red is on a timer when it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 houses to itself. It has 7 houses on a direct line to it and it's on a timer. Hello? My days. This guy does not stop complaining, am I right? I'd unfortunately lost at 1,592 commuters. An ever important part of skill improvement though is the VOD review. I was into the real attempts for the top 1% run, by the way, blessed by some reasonable red and blue building spawns followed by yellow, which was, to be honest, quite detrimental, requiring a road going all the way around just to reach it. It's nice though, right? To see all the houses nicely segregated, possibly followed by the most goated yellow building spawn of all time. Both the yellow buildings just have their own neighborhoods. It's beyond perfect. I had a reasonable blue spawn too. Its value slightly diminished when I had to share the yellow road as I had no bridges. They were luckily temporarily segregated when I got a motorway, deciding just to have the road go around the river when the map expansion allowed it. Fortunately, this quickly occurred, allowing me to replace the highway into my pocket. This was a good play too, as I got a terrible green spawn, and remembering how red had failed me last time, I made sure to use a highway to have it efficiently connected. I was having a slight turn in luck when my double destination turned grey, being able to connect it easily with the nearby grey people, and on top of this, I got another highway. Was this the run of the century? My good luck streak didn't end there. Hitting 430 pins, some new grey houses began to appear at the top. This obviously meant I could retire this highway here, freeing it up, totaling 2 highways now just in my pocket. I had another red spawn too, not too bad. Unfortunately, undoing all of my luck in having to use both of my highways to connect grey and yellow, but let's be honest, all of this meant my infrastructure was top of the game, easily passing 1,000 pins, and with little maintenance, I scooted further and further towards 1,200. Something detrimental has happened. This red building is just, it's in the way, okay? I can't push this green highway up into this one because there's a road in the way. I can't turn this around or anything. And if I go all the way around, then it's just going to be the red building situation again. That's never going to work. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this red building to this small town of red and then just use a highway to get over here. Because look, I'm at 1.2k and I'm only using 2 highways right now. This is really good. This is genuinely, the luck I've had this run is really, really good. The only bad things are like this blue, okay? It has to go all the way through here and it only has 3 supplying. This blue also, it's just been struggling the whole time because of how long this road is. It has a lot of cars supplying to it. These are just really slow. I think at some point, I'm either going to connect a highway to this or like connect this just directly. If this neighborhood grows any more, this is safe forever because I have a bridge, I can just cross it. Oh, well, my days, will this guy ever stop talking? Am I right, chat? Anyways, not to toot my own horn, but I'm the greatest designer to ever live, flying up to 1,800 when blue started to surge, forcing me to reroute some. Luckily safe thanks to my infrastructure. Next, arriving at 2,000, gray began to surge, requiring an addition of another highway just to be safe. 2,300, blue really starts to struggle at this point. I needed a highway in order to save it. 2.4 thousand at this point, I was pretty much cooked. Literally all of my buildings are surging. My only saving grace would be a highway at this point, and would that even help? I don't know. Week 14. Yep. No highway. Good game. At 2,600, it was basically over. I quickly added a highway to the blue, but it was of no help. I had lost at 2,620. If only I had some more highways, I'd received a total of 4 over that entire run. Is that unlucky? I don't even know. Let me know in the comments, please. I have no idea. Top 10%, by the way. I'm getting closer. Night has fallen again, by the way. Grind mode activated. I'd arrived back at Beijing, as personally, I believe in the Beijing dream. I had a pretty reasonable start with a really bad yellow spawn, having to snake red all around the building just to keep everything separate. Early game got even worse with this blue spawn. Holy airball. Genuinely, at this point, I was contemplating simply restarting the run. Luckily, thinking it's all just practice, I may as well continue. May have been one of the best choices I'd make. With everything safe, blue sharing the red road, I was happy with the new well-positioned red neighborhood before, of course, green appeared. What incomprehensibly despicable luck. But, you know, just for the love of the game, for the love of the grind, I kept going, running a giant road simply to connect the greenhouse. My map, by the way, if you look at it, is pretty inefficient right now. I was happy to use a bridge in order to remove the blue and red mixing, which was a step in the right direction. Immediately reversed when I got another incomprehensible blue spawn. It's simply just on the other side. But you know what? It's alright, man. We're all gonna make it. We're all gonna make it in the end, you feel me? We're gonna make it. A statement such proven with a reasonable yellow spawn, followed again by the worst grey spawn of all time. It's squished up with the other two buildings, so there's literally no space for the blue road to get through. And here's the kicker. All the corresponding houses are on the other side of the map. Genuinely, I can't even use a permanent highway because it mixes with the blue road anyway. A temporary highway would have to suffice for now, simply hoping for a blue house to appear somewhere in the south. At this point, I was probably losing faith in this run, decided only after this terrible yellow double destination spawn. The north is a complete mess. In fact, everything is a complete mess. This was a terrible run through and through, or at least I thought. These unfortunate events continued with red spawning on the southeast island, so far away from any corresponding houses, forcing a highway usage. I'm out of everything. I can't take it anymore, I said, as a green spawned alone in the northwest. Genuinely, I give up. Cars can just access any roads I want. I couldn't believe the luck I'd gotten on this run, until of course, a greenhouse spawned nearby. Was this run saved? Genuinely seemed like my luck had turned around. As I closed in on 500 pins, a grey building spawned right next to the grey houses. That is what I'm talking about. This was followed by a brilliant yellow spawn to the west. Was my luck finally evening out? A positive byproduct of these lucky spawns was that I had a free highway, which I could use to connect 3 free houses when I noticed the level 2 blue building was struggling a bit as it was mixing with the green. But then again, I had a new blue building now, so I moved the highway and connected it because the lower residency was closer to the northwest blue building. Even after all of my hardships as I reached 1,500, things were looking surprisingly positive. My only issue was the lack of highways, a prayer seemingly immediately answered when I received one, using it to isolate the level 2 yellow from the grey. But man, this was just brilliant timing. I would like to extend my appreciation for that one highway that one time. Comment your appreciation for that one highway that one time. But all great things must come to an end. Honing in on 2,300, red began surging massively, moving the yellow highway in order to back it up. I removed the blue highway too, even though I would need to put this one back fairly soon. Wait, the best red backup I have is 2 houses. Even with this unfortunality, I managed to survive to 2,800, finally receiving another highway and setting it up to help. But was it too late? My whole city was under a very stressful situation, crossing the 3,000 mark. All of the timers were going off. Pause, okay? I did not have much time left. Doing what I could do for repairs, knowing it was all over, I sat back and watched. My infrastructure finally collapsed at 3,040 commuters. Oh my goodness, what a run. I'm back top 3%. You know what? I may have had some pretty good luck at the end there, but the start was atrocious, and normally by this time I'd have more highways anyway, so top 1% really was possible. Deciding on just one more try tonight, I was happy to see some initial good luck with some good spawns for blue. Like, they're right next to each other. This is so great. Yellow spawn was kind of annoying, but to be fair, it's still close, so basically ideal. I know it's too early to say, but things are definitely looking up. And I didn't want to say I spoke too soon, but the next yellow spawn was kind of annoying, forcing me to move the red road again, something I'd had to do every time a new building is spawned so far. But ooh, motorway week 3, maybe this is the run. Making sure not to use it, I wanted to have plenty in storage for the surges at around 3k, watching a blue double destination spawn and seeing incredibly luckily blue houses spawning too right next to it. This double destination, by the way, turned out to be grey as well, and guess what spawned right next to it? Grey! This could genuinely be the run. I even got a second highway on week 6. Oh my goodness, everyone calm down. Unfortunately, a new red building appeared cutting across the grey road, forcing me to use a roundabout, evened out, by the way, by a yellow building to the east, also spawning really close and efficiently. What's more, another eastern grey spawned right next to the house. Is this genuinely the run of a lifetime? On top of this, week 9, I got my third motorway. This is the moment where I need to use my expertise to get the top 1%. I foresaw at this point that the middle level 2 red was going to become an issue, issue, and on top of this, the red building at the very bottom was starting to struggle, so quickly implementing my spare highway temporarily. Annoyingly, the middle double destination had turned blue, so I needed to use a highway to provide cars, and with dwindling highways left, I had to use another one on keeping the middle red level 2 building safe. I did now tick into week 12, and it seemed like my luck had completely run out. I needed a highway. I'd only been provided 3 this entire time, so I watched in despair as yellow was the first to surge. Quickly decommissioning the red highway, I used it for support just as grey now started to surge too, and it looks like I'm cooked. Why the game simply didn't give me more grey houses is beyond me. I have a backup highway though, so quickly connecting the scariest grey up, it looks like it's over. My only chance at a good run had been ruined by a lack of grey houses. Unfortunate stuff. That night, I locked in again, choosing Chiang Mai as the map and getting to work. What I needed most was to not choke when luck came my way, something that certainly did not happen the first run. I would not let that deter me though, starting a new one and having some luck, still not ideal throughout the end game, ending with 2,448 top 10% score. But wait, let me quickly explain the situation I was currently in. I had found myself yet to have secured the top 1% score, and thus a conclusion for this video with only a single hour before I had to send all the footage off for review. 1 hour to do it, or else my video would unceremoniously end conclusionless after hyping it up all this time. I had enough for 2 games, and although I had morale low, chances were stacked against me. I started this run. With a simple early game, I was lucky with the grey, red, and blue spawns, until of course pink appeared on opposite sides of the map, forcing my only highway. Grey continued to accumulate to the west, and passing 300 pins, I received my second highway, promptly used to supply my new purple building. Surpassing 500 pins now, another pink spawned to the southwest, requiring an unhealthily long road across the top thanks to a lack of highways. At this point, conscious of the time, I was ready to restart, accentuated by a grey building spawning to the northwest, creating an intersection on the longest and most important road. To be honest, I was just about to quit and start again here when I opted to replace the purple highway with a road, receiving another highway that weekend, which was used to properly supply the bottommost pink building. With this, I was barely surviving, not even at 700 pins. At around 800, seeing another grey spawn to the northwest, I removed the intersection in favor of a highway to be safe, the double destination in the middle turning blue, almost being the final nail in the coffin. I had to replace the long pink road with a highway just to give it access to a couple of blue houses, certainly considering throwing in the towel here. If I quit, I could still get another full run in, making the decision, right or wrong, to continue working on this game. As I closed in on 1500, another pink appeared in the southeast, presumably needing a highway on an eventuality. Orange was also struggling, so I added a bridge to connect 3 extra houses across the river. The second double destination to the west had also turned blue, requiring an ugly long road at the top and further congestion within that tiny corner. Had I made a huge mistake in continuing this run? Approaching 1,900 pins, I paused and spent some time fixing up the northern area, placing in a highway and reconnecting the southwestern pink to have an extra highway in case of surges. This was a brilliant play, and I was able to just keep the city moving up to 2,700 pins when an orange building appeared to the east. This was annoyingly close to the fragile infrastructure of the pinks, but I was forced to make 2 intersections to have everything work. Purple was also surging, so rerouting more houses in, I once again managed to survive. My design and the house spawns were quite impeccable, I had noticed, and as I surpassed 3,000 pins, I realized there was a real chance this could be the run, and that this would test everything that I had learnt over all this time. I passed 3,500 pins, placing a highway for the southwest pink to 4 random pink houses to the north to stay safe. 3,600, pausing again as grey was surging, and I had another purple building appear. I connected everything up, but the grey surge seemed too much. I didn't have the highways or the infrastructure to support any longer, and so my run came to an end at 3,977 commuters, checking the leaderboards, top 1%. My final run until the deadline, and somehow I had completed my goal. 2,470th place. Not bad. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing, and if you liked mini motorways and the new creative mode, you can purchase and play the game via the link in the description.